You know, you might often see Bach's name mentioned beside the name of this piece when you look it up online, but it was actually Marcello who wrote the piece. It was actually first an oboe concerto in D minor, written by Alessandro Marcello, and then Bach, quite a number of years later, arranged it for keyboard. So there's a little bit of history for you there. So while it might feel like Bach's music, it isn't. It's Marcello's music arranged by Bach. All right, so as usual, I'm going to start by playing this thing through for you. Not the whole thing, maybe 20, 25 seconds of it. Give you a sense of the music. And then I'll start from the beginning. I'll go bar by bar, and I'll show you how to learn it yourself. Now, this piece is Baroque, which means there's a lot of ornamentation, a lot of rhythmic intricacies. And because of that, wherever there are these intricacies and complexities, I'll take my time and I'll divide up the bar such that all of those difficulties are made as clear as possible. All right, without further ado, here is Adagio. I'll stop here. Okay, so I guess the first thing to notice is the way in which the left hand acts as a rhythmic pedal point, we can call it. It's what keeps your time. It's basically your stopwatch here. It's very even, steady, and everything that happens around that left hand, all the intricacies and scales and ornamentations, they all happen around the very regular and steady left hand. So as we learn this piece, just be aware that the left hand is your timekeeper, right? Make sure that it's steady and that everything that happens around the steadiness of the left. We'll begin with the right hand. This opening, I think it's not really written in stone the way that you play this. I prefer to play it the way that I'm about to show you. It just makes it easier to control. But because it's a simple, straightforward opening, you can maybe find your own fingering. Anyway, this is the finger that I go with. Second finger to begin. We open, since the piece is in 3/4 time, we open with 6/8 notes of D. 3. Easy enough, right? Make sure there's this feeling of continuity from note to note, so that none of them really sound like they're sticking their head up above the other notes. There's this sort of fluidity to this. It's so constant, so steady, and so smooth that it draws the listener in, like it lulls you in to a somewhat hypnotic state, or at least that's what it's trying to do. So to count this out, as I said, we have eighths. The counting would be 1 and 2 and 3 and. Here's your first bar. Moving on now. I would say the right hand moves over to E. The left hand joins and continues playing the same Ds that the right hand was playing in the previous bar. Again, 6 of them. Growing slightly as you get to the end of the bar. And open up to 4-2 in both hands. That's a dominant 7 of D minor, which is the key we're in. We have 6 of these, same counting. 1 and 2 and 3 and the fourth bar we resolve back to D minor, and at the same time introduce the melody in the top. So the left hand, straightforward enough. We have an octave to begin, one of them. Come up to D and F, and finish out the bar playing just them. Now, as I said, the left hand is steady. It's all eighth notes, which means every bar will have 6 left hand events, shall we say. Sometimes it's a single note, sometimes it's a chord, sometimes it's 2 notes, but we'll have 6 of them. So in this bar, we have 1 of these, and then 5 of these. Moving on, next bar, 5th bar. These 2 continue what they're doing, do the exact same thing, but you add a G in the bottom. And 6 of those. 2 and 3 and. Okay. So counting those 2 bars, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now the right hand. When we finish the dominant 7, as we've seen, we move back to D minor. Now you'll notice that my 3rd finger is quite a bit louder than everything beneath it. It's because I want that melody to sing above everything that sits below it. So make sure to voice very clearly that 3rd finger. This is what signals to the audience, okay, we have a new instrument. We have a melody. So that's 3 and 1. And then 5. Switch to 2. 4. Switch to 2. 4, 3. And the little ornament. Ba-ba-dum. It's called a mordant. M-O-R-D-E-N-T. Just a little flourish. Just a little ornament at the end of it. With counts 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. So we have those 2 notes that precede the mordant. That would be 16ths, right? On the end of 3. And then the next bar comes in. 1. And what you'll notice is when I play this ornamentation sits on the 1. It's not like you play it first, and then on the last note is where the downbeat begins. No, the downbeat begins at the beginning of the 3 notes. 1 instead of 1. It'll be made more clear when you see it in action with both the hands. So when you put that together, everything aligns. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. So you can see that the left hand, the chord, arrives and plays on the first of the 3 notes. Right? It's an important distinction. make sure to keep the distance between the hands in terms of volume very clear. You want there to be a real sense of space there. Now, one final thing to say about the pedaling here. When you begin the piece, I think you can play all of this with one pedal. Change. And then change. So that's pretty intuitive, I think. But as we play the melody, in general, I don't like Bach sounding too watery. Too much pedal. It shouldn't be over pedaled. It should be fairly dry. You have to kind of remember that Bach and his ilk, that period of time in history and the instrumentation that they had back then, the harpsichord. There was not a lot of blending of harmonies with the pedal. Things were quite clear and fairly dry. And I think it's not the best idea, at least in my view, to keep the pedal down for all of the melodic notes. In the beginning, let me give you an example. It works. So you can feel free to do that. But maybe this is just my own hang-up. I prefer to actually pedal each eighth note. Now that you run a risk of sort of chopping up the phrase if you do that, but if you keep in mind that the phrase has to feel fluid, legato, and horizontal while you pedal, you can do quite a good job of keeping it dry, but not chopped up if you pedal on each one. And then each one of these gets its own. But then, as a result, you have to make sure to hold all the notes that need holding. For example, this one, hold it for 2 full beats. 1 and 2 and lift and. Anyway, so that's how I tend to hear things. You don't have to follow this direction if you prefer to, find your own pedaling. But I think it's a good way to go to make sure that the right hand stays nice and crisp. If you do decide to pedal, not so actively, then all I recommend is that you change the pedal every time the left hand changes position. Because whenever the left hand changes position or grouping, shape, you're changing harmony, right? So this is all one harmony, so that can be all one pedal. But then change, right? And change. That kind of thing. So basically per bar. Sometimes more, but following the left hand changes is what will give away the pedal changes as well. So take that for what it is and see what you like. Perhaps you like drier, perhaps you like wetter. I think it's fine to find your own. All right, now I'll continue on and move forward with the piece into bar 6, but I'll do that on in my library. There's a free trial, so you can jump on in, have a look around. There's quite a lot to see, many hundreds of pieces at this point, classical and film, as I often like to say. So there's no real risk. Have a gander, and if you like it, stick around and finish this piece off with me. All right, see you there. See you in just a bit.